Carlos Eduardo Santos Torres, At Night in the Backland. Fellow men, your whole life, like a sand glass, will always be reversed, and will ever run out again. A long minute of time will elapse until all those conditions out of which you were evolved return in the will of the cosmic process. Friedrich Nietzsche. 1. The Backland is a vast landform in between civilizations, colored by the sun's restlessness in burnt shades of cider, bronze, and amber. The open terrain is occasionally interrupted by discolored cacti, dead trees, and small, white, lifeless houses. The mighty air plunges the heat to the ground. At night, the air ceases pushing, the sun finally rests, and unleashes the power of its absence, and the wind crackles, battling the outgoing sun, testing which is more punishing. The sky is chrome blue and incessant. The Backland is never a destination. 2. The air was pushing particularly hard on the traveler's shoulders on that ginger summer day, and he could feel them giving up with every trot his black horse surrendered. Not even the black felt hat his wife had given him ameliorated the Backland's castigation, and his head vacillated every mile or so. Fading shadows and the demising light reminded him that the trip was soon to be over. Memories of his wife sputtered throughout the day. Their conglomeration indicted an absent husband, and a mosaic of guilt wiggled through the thick air, enveloping him in remorse. For the last 5 years, in the weeks following his return home, the Backland was a unanimous presence. The violence of the day and the indifference of the night wouldn't wear off until the nightmare stopped. The man under the black felt hat knew that the images he collected in this trip, like in the ones before, gaunt faces, failing towns, and famished animals being devoured by vultures, would permeate his mind like fever permeates the day and apathy the night in this damned place. And through all this, the black horse trotted on and on and on, until the scorched soil was interrupted by the phantasm of a paved road, revealing to the wandering pair a community with 8 homogeneous, white, lifeless houses, 4 on each side of the unpaved street that shaped the area's borders. At the end of the street was a church in need of repair. The ostentatious moon warned the traveler that he had missed the sunset. A young man greeted him with a warm smile. "How has the sun treated you?" "It tortures me day in and day out," answered the traveler. "I know the feeling. Pick any of the houses. There will be a bed available. Go to the church when you wake up." The traveler walked into the nearest one and promised himself that this particular firelit house would be the last one before homecoming. He lay down and fell asleep. When he woke up, it was still dark, but he felt rested nonetheless. He walked out of the house and the sky was chrome blue and full of stars. Like he mowed a windmill, he went to the church. When the traveler entered the church, an explosion of unbearable cacophonous tired bellow stiffened his chest, shoulders, and eyebrows. 11 people, he counted, shouting and crying and praying and singing. They were gathered around a fire urn. As if captured by the feuding melodies, the traveler slowly advanced towards them and integrated into the circle. They started moving clockwise around the urn, picking up the pace upon the completion of a cycle. At first, he felt lost, but as they went round and round and round and round, he felt lighter and cooler, eventually contributing to the communal song of desperation. They did this until the fire went out. When the ceremony ended, the traveler felt dizzy and weightless, and his shoulders sighed. He went outside to catch his breath. The dark blue chrome sky engulfed the Backland. He hadn't realized how long he spent inside the church. The young man who had greeted him followed him outside and said he should rest, so he did. When he woke up, it was still dark, but he felt rested nonetheless. He walked out of the house, smiled at the moon, and made his way to the church. There he sang and cried and prayed and shouted, and got in a circle, and moved, slowly and then fast, around the urn, whilst the others sang, cried, prayed, and shouted until the fire was out. Then he went to bed. The moon and the stars looked just like before. All the heat and pressure exerted by the Backland on him had made him a bitter and violent man, but the cold and the stars and the moon would make him temperate, he thought. The Backland would give back what it took. He kept participating in the circular ritual that gave him purpose, over and over and over and over. The sky was always dark when he looked at it, and the moon was a calming presence. All days were alike. Once, however, his black horse was waiting outside the church. The traveler looked at his travel companion and nodded. The stallion turned around and galloped away into the Backland, blending into the metallic blue of the night. It was time to go to bed. When he woke up, it was still dark, but he felt rested nonetheless. On his way to the church, he looked at the moon and took a deep breath. In the church he sang and cried and prayed and shouted, and he got in a circle and moved, slowly and then fast, around the urn, whilst the others sang, cried, prayed, and shouted until the fire was out. He went outside and at the sight of the moon cried. "How long have I been here?" he asked the young man. "I don't know." The young man said he would get used to it soon, and that if they kept singing and crying and praying and shouting, the sun might remember that they exist. It was time to go to bed. When he woke up, it was still dark, so he went to the church. He sang, cried, prayed, and shouted. He got in the circle and walked round and round and round and round until the fire went out. The traveler exited the church, looked at the moon, cried, and went to bed. 3. The traveler, mounted on a pale horse, strayed along the Backland's eternal horizon until the scorched soil was interrupted by the phantasm of a paved road, revealing to the wandering pair a community with 8 homogeneous, white, lifeless houses, 4 on each side of the unpaved street that shaped the area's borders. At the end of the street was a church in need of repair. The ostentatious moon warned the traveler that he had missed the sunset. A crying man greeted him. "How has the sun treated you?" he asked with a smirk, relaxing his shoulders.